Hey there everyone, Videogame Cabinet here, and tonight we're doing a review on Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest for the Nintendo Entertainment System. I last played Simon's Quest in high school roughly 25 years ago. So for the last few days, I've been replaying the game to see how it holds up after all this time. I beat it yesterday morning and ran through it another time today. First time getting the bad ending and second time getting the normal ending. Simon's Quest is a big departure from the first Castlevania. This time there is a large interconnected world to explore rather than a series of linear levels. This very much feels like what later installments would play like, coined as Metroidvanias, but most of the locations here are outdoors. You travel to find 5 dungeons that each hold a piece of Dracula's body in order to lift a curse that afflicts Simon. You visit towns along the way and search for clues and items to unlock new paths. There is also a day-night cycle where the enemies in the woods and graveyards are stronger and the townsfolk turn into zombies. Simon's Quest has a lot of brilliant concepts that were developed even further in later entries of the Castlevania series. The freedom to explore the entire landscape right from the start is a breath of fresh air. Certain dungeons can be completed in different order each playthrough. Finding new weapons and pieces of Dracula's body is rewarding. His rib acts as a shield, and his eyeball allows Simon to see hidden manuscripts that contain clues. The day-night cycle is also really neat, adding to the brooding atmosphere. And just as the series is known for, the soundtrack is phenomenal. Bloody Tears and Dwelling of Doom are absolute classic tracks. However, there are some definite imperfections with Simon's Quest. The clues from the hidden manuscripts and advice from the townsfolk tend to be quite vague. Some hints are useful, but many are not. So figuring out how to progress further can be cryptic, which was common for a lot of 8-bit adventure games made at the time. As for battling enemies, the difficulty is massively curbed compared to the first game. You get infinite continues at the same point of death. So it's a pretty easy game once you know where to go next. You can level up your character with experience points, but they don't matter much with the infinite continues. I was able to beat the game fine with level 1 experience on my first playthrough and level 2 experience on my second playthrough. My biggest gripe was the lack of boss battles. There are only 3 bosses in the whole game, and they're all very quick and easy to defeat. After the challenging boss fights in the first Castlevania, this was pretty disappointing. The dungeons themselves are also fairly straightforward, only requiring you to find the sage who sells you a steak, and then using that steak to open the treasure bag with one of Dracula's body parts. This is an early adventure game after all, so the simplistic nature of these dungeons is forgivable. I also could have used a bit more enemy variety, but the enemies here are cool and fit the classic horror theme perfectly. Despite the flaws, I still admire Simon's Quest for being an early trailblazer in the Metroidvania genre. I love how the game allows you to choose your own path, and you can get certain items in whatever order you please. It pioneered a lot of ideas that would come into play for the series later, and most of those ideas, not all, work well here. Exploring the spooky setting and listening to that gothic soundtrack is still an absolute joy. I'm giving Simon's Quest an 8 out of 10. And that is my review. Yeah, several months ago I did a top 35 of my favorite NES games, and I put this on there quite high just from my memory of playing it 25 years ago. And as I said when I made those lists, taste changes over time. Playing this again now, 25 years later, certain flaws did stand out to me more than I remembered back then. Like really the lack of boss battles is kind of what hurt it for me, especially after the great ones in the first game, and the other Castlevanias, those have great boss battles too. But I still do like the game a lot. I think I placed it somewhere around the middle of that top 35. As of now, playing it now again all these years later, it might still make the top 35, but it would definitely make it more towards the bottom. And you know, the first Castlevania would definitely be more towards the upper middle, and Castlevania 3, that's the best one. That would be up towards the top. That one I'm going to replay soon too. But yeah, this was still a really good game. Very good. It's got problems, though. It definitely has problems. But where the good parts of it, where it shines, it does shine brightly. It is a lot of fun. I do think it is too easy, especially with the infinite continues, like right from the point of death, like right immediate spawn. Yeah, and the dungeons are a little bit simplistic, but you know, I can kind of forgive that. I think this game came out in 1987. But yeah, this was very interesting to play again after, you know, I think it was sophomore year of high school that I last played through this game. And yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, so those are my thoughts. As of now, I'm giving Simon's Quest an 8 out of 10. I think when I made that video several months ago, I was saying it was a 9. That's too high. That's definitely too high. It's got more problems than that, but I'm still gonna rate it, you know, fairly high at an 8. So just wanted to say that. So that's it. 8 out of 10 for Simon's Quest, and have a good night.